Hi, I'm Steven from Neon Dagger, and this is a sort of quick intro video to describe my series of lessons that I'm releasing here called Learn Game Coding Step by Step with C# and Unity. Sort of formed this as a short Q&A to hopefully answer all of the questions that you might have before you dive right in. So the first question would be, what is this series of lessons? And well, basically it's a full beginner's course on learning programming, C# language in specific, through game development using the Unity game engine in specific. So the first 5 lessons or so is going to be sort of a crash course in prototyping a game in Unity. This is going to be just writing some code out, showing you how quickly we can get something interesting happening on the screen and sort of explain some base concepts. And the next set of lessons, which is going to be about lessons 6 to 20 something, it's going to be focusing on the foundational concepts in the C# language. And about the next 20 or so set of lessons, we're going to use that knowledge and dive a little more deeper into those concepts and apply them directly to Unity in order to create a fun, fast-paced 2D arena action game. At the very end of that, there's going to be about a set of 10 additional lessons for those of you who want to go just a little step further, where we look at the underlying physics engine of Unity and use the previous knowledge that we'd learned and add it to this new knowledge in order to create a physics-based platformer game. Next question is, who is this for? This course is, I would say, primarily for people who want to learn programming in a sort of fun and visual way. You know, there's a lot of programming material out there that is pretty static and you're just basically looking at text on a screen. And to my mind, there's no better way to learn programming than through game development. And if you happen to want to actually learn programming for the main purpose of doing game development, then this is probably doubly appropriate for you. Next question is, why C# and why Unity? Well, essentially those two elements go perfectly together. Unity uses a C# programming language as its coding foundation. Unity is itself the most popular game engine out there. And once you learn it, you can do pretty much any kind of game you'd like. And the C# language I find particularly to be a great foundational language. That is to say, once you learn C#, it ports very well to learning other languages. I started off with different languages, and I actually had a hard time mapping those concepts onto other languages when I moved forward. Once I've learned C#, I found myself really quickly being able to pick up on any other programming language I come across because the concepts are so foundational. But also I find it to be a fun and very instructive language to work with, and you can do so much with it. And the next question might be, why should I choose this course? There's a lot of information out there. And you're right, there is a lot of information. But I find that most people are actually really great learners. But what they suffer with is the ability to piece things together in a correct sequence in order to maximize their learning and not feel constantly lost and overwhelmed. So this course is very carefully structured and sequenced as a series of steps. And we never go too far ahead, and we keep it in manageable bite-sized pieces. So if you feel like you could deal well to have that kind of learning path, you know, almost like a college level course where you start from start and you progress your way to the end and you have something tangible at the very end, then I'd say this is pretty ideal for you. Next question is, prerequisites, are there any? Experience-wise, pretty much no, none. There's a lot of people who think that you have to come into programming and certainly game development with some sort of Herculean levels of math knowledge or something like that. And absolutely is not true at all. You can do a lot with just base arithmetic. And essentially the main skill that programming rewards is problem solving. And I think most people are actually really good at problem solving to begin with. So tools wise, we're going to be using Unity and Visual Studio. Both of those tools are free. And towards the end of this video, I'll just quickly show you how to go about installing it. It's really quick and simple. Next question is, if this is a course, then how much is it and what do I get in return? Well, I've made this full course, all 60 lessons, completely free. You can take this course from front to back without paying a dime. But if you feel like you can benefit from some extras such as quizzes, a Q&A section, and downloadable code at the end of each lesson, then you can go to the link in the description below and sign up for a membership. You'll get these perks, and at the same time, you'll be supporting me. It was not easy coming up with this content, so it gives me some additional support. If you don't want to go that route and you still want to support me, you can check out some of my assets that I have for sale for Unity if you start getting into Unity, or you can just subscribe here and follow and do all those good things. And the last question would be, what else should you know before you get started? And I don't have much extra to say here other than to be prepared to work through the lessons with your hand on the keyboard. You know, a lot of people, I think, are used to sort of casually looking at lessons and kind of jumping around a lot. But this is meant to be like a course where you go at a slow pace, at your own pace, and with your hands on the keyboard doing the work preferably, because a lot of actually learning programming in my experience has been honing that muscle memory. So be prepared to sit there at your keyboard as you're watching the lesson material. And I have every confidence that if you do that at the end of this series of lessons, you will know how to program and you will know how to make games. All right, with those questions out of the way, hopefully that answers everything you need to know. We'll get right to installing those tools and start learning. All right, we're going to really quickly look at installing the tools, Unity and Visual Studio, because honestly, there's a lot of resources on how to get set up, and it's not that difficult, but it does change sometimes on occasion. And now's probably a good time to mention that don't get too worried if things don't look exactly on your end as they do in the lesson videos. Things do change sometimes, little minor details, but this is a fundamentals course, so the important stuff that you're learning, 99.9% of the stuff you're learning is not going to change. Anyways, so for installing the two tools, Unity and Visual Studio, there's multiple ways of doing it. Probably the most common way to do it is to install Unity, which will then allow you to install Visual Studio from within its interface. So when you go type in download Unity into the search engine, you'll find yourself on this kind of page, and you're going to want to download Unity Hub. Right, so when you do that, you're going to end up with an application that looks something like this. And you see here I have some projects already and some installed versions of Unity. So you can go to installs here and click add and choose the release that you would like, probably the most recent one, not a big deal. Choose whichever one really. And it'll ask you to add modules. Now in this list, you're not going to have to check off any of this stuff, but you're going to want to choose Visual Studio in the dev tools. Now you don't see it on my side because I already have it installed, but it would be somewhere around here. Click on that. That will also install Visual Studio and link them up accordingly. And once you have all that installed, and definitely be sure not to pay for anything. This is all free. There is some paid options, but that only has to do with, licensing for enterprise and larger teams and that kind of thing. So definitely go for the free stuff, the Visual Studio Community, and Unity, not the Plus version, is also going to be the one that you want. And then once you have that all installed, you're going to want to create a new project here under New. And it'll again look something like this. Don't get too bent out of shape if it doesn't look exactly like this. It'll be basically the same though. Make sure it's a 2D project. Give it a name, and might as well give it this name because we're going to be using this as the first project and for the next 40 some odd lessons or whatever. And choose the location and hit create. If you just want to double check to make sure that Unity and Visual Studio are talking to one another and able to work with one another, just go into Unity into the preferences section and make sure that the editor is set to Visual Studio. And again, if you have any troubles, it's kind of out of the scope of this video. You can look around. There's a lot of tutorials on how to do this, especially as of the time in which you're watching this. Details may have changed. So, all right, so now that you got those tools all set up, check out the link in the description below to get to the lesson landing page. That's the easiest way to do this. Of course, you can do it through YouTube if you wish. And I'll see you in the next lesson.